ones are the African Association of Psychiatrists, the African College of Neuropsychopharmacology, and the World Psychiatry Association. Please join me in welcoming Professor Lukoye Atuoli.
Thank you, Daktari, for the very elaborate introduction. I thank you. Prime CS, honored guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I greet you good afternoon. I was invited to speak to you about a subject that's very topical, and this is on artificial intelligence and how we apply that in health. And obviously, the question that is asked by many people in many sectors, not only in health, is whether AI will replace you. And I have a ready answer for that. And the answer is that AI, perhaps if there's nothing else you remember from what I say today, AI will not replace the doctor, but the doctor who uses AI will replace the doctor who doesn't. So that is the reality you're going to have to live with. Those small, tiny practices, I think I was speaking with a colleague on our way here, the small, tiny practices that you selfishly see patients alone in your corner are going to disappear because of AI. You're going to have to work with other people, get a lot of data, and use that data to improve your own practice. So that is the future, and it's inevitable. Next slide. So this afternoon I will take us through what AI is, because there's a lot of thinking about what does AI mean, but I'll try and confine myself to what AI is and its applications in health. And then I'll touch on what the future might look like in a world where AI is ubiquitous, but also think about some of the risks then, other than the opportunities, some of the risks that AI poses in the health sector. And after that, what are we doing about those risks, which is the ethical part of this presentation. So by way of introduction, AI presents unprecedented opportunities. I mean, the things we can do now because of AI are things that we couldn't think about 20 years from now, or 20 years ago. But it also presents little understood risks. There are risks that we are just starting to figure out, and I'll be touching on some of those as we go along. The need to understand huge and increasing amounts of health data in less and less time, because critical decisions have to be made while the data that you have to crunch is huge. It is more than our brains can do. If you decide to do it yourself, it might take weeks. But then when you use AI, it takes less and less time. And this is why we have no choice but to use AI. Interestingly, brain function, which is the area where I come from, has inspired, and it's the inspiration behind AI, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a few. And AI uses what we know about brain function, which is not a lot, but it's substantial, to design machines that operate the same way our brains work at a very elemental level. And due to the increasing computing power, you know that it doubles, for a long time it's been doubling every 6 months, the computing capacity. Because of that, then, we are able to do the things that we cannot do ourselves. And so, as I said earlier, if you do not leverage AI as we have it, of course, knowing the risks and knowing all the opportunities that are available, then the guy who uses those will replace you. So looking at brain function as a template, so this AI revolution did not start in 2020. AI has been with us for more than 50 years. And the first attempts were trying to understand how neurons fire and then create programs or algorithms that behave the same way neurons fire in your brain. And these were the things that were called perceptrons or linear classifiers. They're mathematical functions that then function the same way the current is propagated on the neuron and how it then fires at the end. So it mimics how the brain functions in two ways. You build neural networks that look like the brain structure, and I will show you one of those, and then they solve complex problems using those neural networks. But it also mimics human intelligence. And I keep insisting mimics human intelligence, like reading text, interpreting speech, classifying things, looking at videos and pictures and making sense of those. Those are the two ways in which it mimics the human brain. So AI is a field of computing. And we remember that at the end of this presentation. It's a field of computing where programs are developed that have the ability to learn, and I'm putting that in quotes, and reason like humans. Once you know how it works, then you'll see that it's not the same way you reason, but it's a progression of mathematical computations that give an output that then looks like the output you would have given if you did those computations in your own brain. There's a subset of AI known as machine learning, which is about developing algorithms that learn without being explicitly programmed. So you give it the initial instruction, and then internally it organizes itself so that it does a series of mathematical computations that are required to give the outcome that you're looking for. And then we have deep learning, which involves development of algorithms which are known as artificial neural networks that adapt and learn from vast amounts of data. So that is the closest we can get to the complex brain and the networks within the brain. And I've demonstrated that in this picture here. So artificial intelligence is a broader field. And within artificial intelligence, then we have machine learning. And within machine learning, we have deep learning. So this is why we say it mimics brain structure. So if you look on the right of this slide, these are a series of inputs which can be variables. We call them variables in statistics. And then you give them varying weights for each of the variables. It has a variety of weights. So one is heavier than another. One is more important than another. And then the transfer function is the product of addition of this weight times the input. It gives the transfer function which decides whether are we moving beyond this? Has it met a threshold or has it not met a threshold? And if it has met a threshold, it gives an output which activates something on the other end, and it becomes an input subsequently somewhere else. Much the same way your neurons operate. There's input and there are operations that happen. To fire, there's a threshold of stimulation. There's a threshold of calculation that determines whether there'll be an output. And so when you make it a neural network, as this one below shows you, there's multiple of those nodes. Each of those nodes is like a neuron, and then they are connected, and the calculations interact with each other and produce output on the other hand. There are hidden layers. The hidden layers are hidden calculations. They are hidden because you and I cannot go inside the computer and see what does it do at step number 55. It does multiple things. It produces output. What you are interested in is, I gave this input and it gave this output, and you measure whether it is accurate or inaccurate. And you, the human operator, will decide that it is not accurate, and you give it that feedback. And then it goes back and changes the weights, which I showed you earlier, and then gives a fresh output until you say it is now accurate. And then you can apply it to real world data. So the things that AI are programs, computer programs. So when you ask, will AI replace me? You're asking whether a computer program will replace you. All right? All it does is that it uses huge volumes of data to classify things based on similarities and differences, to predict future outcomes based on previously collected data, and to recommend intervention based on previous outcomes. The second thing is that it is designed to mimic human thinking, human speech, human appearance, human movements. And the third thing is that it's able to calculate, to make calculations with huge amounts of data. We are talking about millions of, if you're doing statistics, you're talking about millions of data points and hundreds of variables. And it calculates that in a very short time. And it helps to deliver on the needs that we have. Okay, so it doesn't have autonomy to decide this is what I want to calculate and then this is what I'm giving out on, but it delivers on our needs. What AI is not, you'll be surprised to learn that AI is not intelligent. It is not intelligent because the way we understand human intelligence is not the way it operates. As I've just shown you, it's a series of calculations. And who makes the formula? Who gives the input? Who judges whether the output is accurate? It's a human. Okay, so it's not intelligence in that sense. But it is based on algorithms that are built with lots of human help and feeds off of mountains of data that you and I generate. Humans generate that data. And we decide what classifications make sense when it starts to classify things. Some classifications don't make sense. So it is not intelligent in that way. When you talk about training in AI, humans looking at outputs of AI algorithms and then telling it that this is wrong and this is right. And then going back and adjusting the weights and then say until it is as close to accurate as possible, 99%, and then you say it's good enough. Second thing that it is not sentient. It doesn't know it exists. All right? AI does not know that AI exists. When you build that algorithm, if you ask it, do you exist? It will go into mountains of data, and then it will answer you based on the data that it was trained on. So if it was trained on sci-fi, science fiction, it will tell you things from science fiction. If it was trained on real-world data, it will tell you. But more likely, it will tell you, I do not exist in the same way that you exist as an independent being. It is not autonomous, because AI does not create itself. Those algorithms are made by many scientists, many humans, using lots of energy, using lots of knowledge about computing, about statistics and so on. So it has no will of its own, it has no desires or wishes. If you leave it to its own devices, it will ultimately degenerate the laws of entropy as we know them. But the greatest uncertainty about this autonomy or otherwise is due to poor understanding of what happens within the layers of artificial neural networks, which are really just computational decision points. But because we don't know, then we say it's unknowable. But it is really knowable. It's just that there are people who understand those things better than we who use those algorithms. And so having understood what AI is and what AI is not, how can we use it in health? Can we use it to replace the striking interns? Can we use it to say that the 600 pediatricians we have are enough? We don't need to train anymore because AI can do the rest of the job. So those are some of the questions that we might have to ask ourselves. But the four main use cases for AI in a health setting is classification and hypothesis testing, and I'll show you what that means, regression and prediction, recommendation systems, and automated care. So let's look at classification and hypothesis testing. If you want to diagnose, I don't know, what do you pediatricians diagnose? It's been many years since I did anything pediatric. Okay. So you want to diagnose pneumonia, right? You have a baby in front of you. There's an algorithm which you have been trained on to arrive at a diagnosis of pneumonia. You say they're breathing very fast. When they are very small, these the intercostal things are happening. They're breathing with their tumbo, isn't it? Yeah, stuff like that. They're practically gasping, and then they're warm. Yeah, the temperature is high, and then they're not eating well or they're throwing up, isn't it? These are the things you have been trained on. And so you have an algorithm in your brain that says if somebody comes with these things, and then I do an X-ray and I see this kind of thing, image, I add that to the data I have. And then there have been other children who have been coming with this thing and they were diagnosed with this kind of pneumonia. I add that to the data, right? And then I arrive at a conclusion and say this child has pneumonia, it's probably TB. Because the village where he lives in, there's poor ventilation, there are many children there who have come here with TB and so on. So you are using that data to put it all together and crunch in your brain using the algorithm that you were given in medical school to say this child has pneumonia. Then you will do some tests to confirm and you will add that to the data, increase the level of certainty. Now, take the same scenario. An algorithm that knows where this child lives, because that data is available. Maybe their parent has a wearable gadget that sends location information on their phone. It knows the socioeconomic status of their parents because it knows what they buy. It knows where they buy their things because that data is collected. It knows whether you have a TV or not. It knows where you live. It knows where you have come from, the distance you have come. It can estimate the means you have used to come, whether you walked, used a matatu, or drove. So it has all that data about you. And then, in addition, it has this information that this child is not breathing well, his temperature is high, and so on and so forth. So it will use a lot more data than you use clinically to arrive at a classification to say, this is pneumonia. It will use hundreds of times more data than you use to make your diagnosis of pneumonia, if it has that data. So that is a function of classification and hypothesis testing. All diagnosis uses algorithms. And because all diagnosis uses algorithms, AI can do it.
The behavior of other people you have been seeing, the books you have read are based on children who have been seen, whether that child will live or die, to a certain degree of certainty. And again, AI can do that better than you, because it has data on millions and millions of children who presented with the same symptoms, who did all sorts of different things, and it has the outcomes. It can tell you 90% chance this child will survive, or 50% chance. Is helping you to arrive at a decision about what you're going to give this child. It can also assess you on potential outcomes for each of the interventions. If you decide, I'm going to give an antibiotic, although I think it is viral, I'll give an antibiotic, it will tell you what the outcomes will look like. Lastly, in automated care, next slide, please. So we all have been talking about ChatGPT. It might be what ignited this conversation about AI. And yet you don't know that you've been searching things on Google for more than 10 years, I can say. Google uses AI to recommend things to you. When you search Lukoya Tuoli, it decides what to show you, and it might show you something different from what it will show somebody else based on your search history. And that is AI using data collected about you and about people like you to recommend things to you. And ChatGPT is just
next level where it starts predicting and saying, when people say my name is, the most common next word is this. This is how you ask, when you go to search, you enter the first 3 words, what is, and it recommends a whole sort of list of things, isn't it? Because it's based on the most common searches by people like you. Not just by anyone, but by people who are of your gender, your age, your location, and who do things like you. Like who search for certain things, search for shoes, search for ugali. It will recommend things based on that. So based on the training data and huge data sets, generative AI is able to predict appropriate next output. That's why it speaks like a person, because it's been trained on millions of people speaking to each other, people asking each other questions and responding in a certain way. So it starts predicting what should I do next. But just remember, it uses probability and the calculations, as I showed you earlier, to make those recommendations. It cannot think, it cannot reason, it cannot even calculate in many times. Who has tried to do a calculation with ChatGPT? The GPT-3, not GPT-4. You try and say, what is 3 times 5? Many times it might give you the wrong answer. But it's giving you the wrong answer because it is going into the mountain of data and saying, when people are asked what is 3 times 5, what is the next appropriate thing that comes out? And it says with a probability of 90%, it might be 15. Probability of 75%, it might be a trick question, so the answer might be 20. And it will give you whatever it finds in that mountain of data. However, the usefulness of these chatbots is it is able to have a human-like conversation. So if somebody is in distress, they can go in there, say what is bothering them, and it will go into that mountain of data and find, well, what do people do with people who feel like this? And it will then come back. For instance, if you say, I have a headache, it looks into that mountain of data and says the most appropriate response when somebody tells you they have a headache is, oh, I'm so sorry. And what else is going on with you? And it will do exactly that. And then you will respond, and it will look into the mountain of data and say the appropriate thing that people say after somebody says this. And so you are having a conversation, but it is based on what millions and millions of other people have conversed about. So it's not like it's thinking and reasoning and planning. It is just looking at the training data that it has been given. There are risks. Next slide, please. There are risks with AI use in health. All the scenarios I've given you, brilliant stuff. It will make our work more efficient, will make our diagnosis more accurate, it will make our interventions a lot more evidence-based, because if it is trained on the evidence. Amounts of computing power. It is not cheap. That is why not everybody develops those algorithms. The big companies that are doing it now, Google, Apple, Amazon, and so on. It is expensive. Then there is the issue of what they call. So this was coined by computer scientists. I told you AI is a field. Asked these AI questions, and it was giving fake answers. Machine confabulation. Confabulation is when you make up things. So they do make up things. If you ask it, who is Justus Simba? It might tell you Justus Simba is a senior professor of infectious disease at Harvard. And it can do that. If you ask it, how many publications does Angela Migoa have? It will go and make up publications for you. It might list 3 accurate ones, and then the rest, it just makes up, it puts together strings of names and titles and fake journals and so on. So those are what they call hallucinations. There's a risk of over-reliance on AI, and so you stop taking responsibility for certain decisions you make as a clinician. That's a huge risk. You think AI will tell me it is pneumonia, it will tell me what dawa to give. I just need to input data and it will give me a response and I finish with this patient. It will make mistakes. and you are still responsible for those mistakes. So this poses a threat to safety in hospital environments. Finally, I will go through ethics of AI in health, which will attempt to address the problems that we have identified. The US National Academy of Medicine has developed a draft code of conduct, and we are now going through that draft code of conduct and giving proposals to improve it before they publish the final version of this document of applying AI in health, healthcare, and biomedical science. And from the outset, the members of the team that developed these guidelines, they acknowledge that as an emergent constellation of technologies, AI presents both unprecedented opportunities and potential risks for human health and well-being. And so they have produced certain principles based on a framework that already exists, based on the learning health system core principles. So academic medical centers are supposed to systems. In other words, you use evidence, you apply it on patients, you get outputs, and you use those outputs to improve your health system so that the next patient gets even better care. And so this is based on that. And they also recommended that developers and users adhere to a set of commitments which they have established, and I will show you. So here, these are the core principles that people who use AI in health are recommended to think about. Make sure you are engaged, so you understand and prioritize the needs, preferences, goals of people, and the related implications throughout the AI lifecycle, from development, deployment, evaluation, and redevelopment. You have to ensure it is safe for people. Each of these statements is centered on people, machine. So, and mitigate as you develop this AI. You have to make sure it's effective. If you say it is useful in reading radiographs and telling whether somebody has pneumonia, cancer, or not, then you have to keep checking to make sure it is actually doing that, because it can start hallucinating. You must make sure it is equitable. In other words, the data you train it on should not be from a segment of the population. It must apply to a large population in which this algorithm is going to be applied. It has to be efficient, so that if it is doing something that is tedious for humans, it does it so well that the humans can then focus on the other things that are important. It has to be accessible. So the people who need it should be able to get it. And it has to be transparent. When you develop it, the algorithm, I should be able to go and check the program that you use to develop that algorithm and make sure you have not put in some small viral codes that are going to cause harm. And it has to be accountable, so that if we find a problem, we know so-and-so is the one who's responsible for it. And it has to be secure, so that my data is not stolen and misused. And finally, it has to be adaptive. You can't create it and say, we have the final product, is going to work, and so on and so forth. So it has to be something that is flexible and adaptive. And finally, these are the commitments that we require people who develop and deploy AI in health to adhere to. So the focus of the algorithm must be to protect and advance human health and human connection as the primary aim. So when you have an app, it has AI, your goal should be, the person using it should be connecting to another human at the end of the day, not just a machine and it ends there. The benefits must be equitable. So benefit and risk should be equitably distributed. So one group should not take most of the risk, while another group benefits most from it. Involvement. So you have to have this, what we call in Kenya, public participation, even in the scientific community. If I'm going to create an algorithm that works for pediatricians, I must make sure I have spoken to pediatricians so that I know what they need, and I develop something that works for them. Workforce well-being. It should not increase your burden. You know, a lot of the electronic health record systems that have been introduced actually increase your burden, isn't it? You find that now you are spending a lot on the computer after the patient has left the room. You spend double the time you spend with the patient, filling forms, entering data, looking at outputs, making reports, and so on. So it shouldn't create more burden on you and create burnout. Then monitoring, it should be monitored and openly and comprehensively share methods and evidence of AI's performance. So if it is not performing well, we should know. If it starts confabulating, we should be told that app now makes up stuff. So when you use it, user beware. And finally, innovation. It has to be an improvement on what we do, rather than just doing it because it is available. The future, how it looks like, as I said, in your practice, you will have a group of patients that you attend to, because you take care of these children for a long period of time when they're born, isn't it? So you will have people who have wearables that will be collecting data routinely and passively and uploading it onto the cloud to which you have access. Then, when somebody feels unwell, they'll be accessing a gadget and saying how they feel. And that data will be added to whatever has been collected in the cloud. The system will be looking at that data and saying, you need to go to hospital. Or just stop for a moment and take a deep breath, you'll be fine. Or sleep a little more. Or go out. This is what you guys go through. So you will tell the system that, and it will say, yeah, let the child go out and play, based on the data that it has. But at some point it will tell you, go to the hospital. And when the patient comes to the hospital, they will find you, and you will go into the system and see all that output, all the data it has collected, and it will tell you, based on this person's lifestyle and everything, and the symptoms they have today, you better do a scan of the brain. They might be going through something that you need to see in the brain. And then you do the scan, you compare with the data you have, and you make your diagnosis. And once you do, you might say, this child has an aneurysm. And then it will tell you, based on the size of that aneurysm and its location, I wouldn't recommend that you open that thing up. Or call a neurosurgeon to deal with it, and so on. So it will make those classifications and recommendations. And as I finish, I will tell you then that the future doctor, who is here now in this room, must develop expertise in data science and AI. The same way we required you to understand literature appraisal so that you can read literature and apply it in your practice. You are going to be required to understand AI and data science and apply it in your practice. And I say again, AI will not replace you, but your colleagues who use AI are going to replace you. So it's a choice that you have to make, whether you want to be the one who replaces the dinosaurs that do not use AI, or you want to be the dinosaur itself. And I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Tuoli. I hope from that people will make a decision which side of the divide they want to be, to replace others or to be replaced. Thank you very much. At this point, I wish to welcome Dr. Isaac Bashir. Dr. Bashir is the Head Directorate of Family Health, Ministry of Health, Kenya, to give us some remarks and to welcome our chief guest. Asante, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Your Excellency, Prime Cabinet Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, Foreign Affairs, Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Honorable Dr. Musalia Mudavadi, Chairperson of the Kenya Paediatric Association and the officials, Minister of Health and other government officers who are here, the Pediatric Society and all healthcare workers here, our distinguished partners and all delegates present. Good afternoon. Your Excellency, sir, allow me to read the speech of our Cabinet Secretary who was to be here, but due to exigence of duty, had sent in her apologies and requested me to read her speech. On behalf of the Ministry of Health, Kenya, Allow me to take this opportunity to welcome you all to this important scientific conference hosted by the Kenya Paediatric Association. Let me also invite all of you to Mombasa County. For those from abroad as well as those from other counties, I welcome you to take some time after the conference and explore some of the renowned tourist attractions in our city. Ladies and gentlemen, the literature shows that making greater investments in children's health results in better educated and more productive adults and sets in motion favorable demographic changes. Safeguarding health during childhood is more important than at any other age because poor health during childhood, in children's early years, is likely to permanently impair their social, cognitive development and economic productivity over the course of their life. In addition, poor health has been recognized as a mechanism for the intergenerational transmission of poverty. Children and adolescents, therefore, are valuable national assets and are key to the future of our country. We need to ensure that they survive and thrive to attain their full potential. Kenya has made great progress in improving child health indicators. The under 5 mortality has reduced from a high of 115 per 1,000 children live births in 2003 to 41 deaths per 1,000 live births in 2022. However, newborn mortality has stagnated at 21 deaths per 1,000 live births and account for 51% of the deaths among children under 5 years. One month old, the ones who are only 1 month, newborns, are contributing to the 51% of the deaths for under 5 children. So we know where our focus is now. By 2030, we should have lowered the under 5 mortality to less than 25 deaths per 1,000 live births and newborn mortality to 12. So our target of 2030 and where we are now is almost 100 times, double. And the time we have is too short. With 2030 being only 6 years away, we have to double and even triple our efforts to do this. Achieving the SDG targets will require strategy, fortitude, and commitment to the end. Ladies and gentlemen, access to healthcare service in Kenya has increased over the years. An example is having 89% of our mothers giving birth has prioritized primary health care. The government supports community health promoters to provide health education targeting maternal, newborn, and child health. The Ministry of Health, working with counties, are establishing primary care health networks. These are aimed at improving linkage between the community units and the primary healthcare facilities and strengthening referral to the secondary hospitals. Working through the primary care network model, pediatricians at level 4 and 5 facilities can mentor clinicians at primary healthcare facilities to provide quality essential newborn care, recognize cases that need referral, and improve referral pathways. As we strive for broader health service coverage, we must prioritize service quality. We can only do this by focusing on all the health system building blocks. The Ministry of Health is committed to delivering quality healthcare services through the development of up-to-date strategies and clinical guidelines. We urge all healthcare workers to utilize these guidelines to provide quality patient care. Working with the counties, KPA and partners, we are committed to ensuring that pre-service and in-service training to ensure our healthcare workers are skilled to provide quality of care. Skilled health workers have to be supported by functional health systems, including the availability of essential commodities and equipment. I urge all counties to equip primary healthcare facilities to provide essential newborn, child, and adolescent health services, and our hospitals to provide comprehensive healthcare services. In the effort to especially reduce newborn mortality, seamless coordination between maternity and newborn units is imperative to to mitigate neonatal deaths stemming from labor and delivery complications. Therefore, the obstetricians must work with the pediatricians, the midwives, work with the newborn care nurses in order to send a well mother and baby home. Technology is very key in improving the quality of data collected and the analysis of the data, which can be utilized to improve quality services. The theme for this year's conference resonates well with this. The theme, from data to practice, harnessing technology to optimize healthcare from neonate to the adolescent. This is a challenge for us to think of ways in which we can make use of technology to optimize the healthcare of our children as well as adolescents, and in turn improve the quality of care we provide. The Ministry of Health prioritizes evidence-based decision-making in our policies, strategies, and guidelines, and is continually improving our data generation and use to improve healthcare. We are rolling out the digital health platform to enable electronic medical records. This is not only poised to increase efficiency, quality, and continuity of healthcare, but also to support health management functions like financial, procurement, and administration. I commend the KPA and other organizers of this conference for working so hard to ensure its success. The conference can and should serve as one of the ways of rededicating our efforts to achieving the SDG goals, improving the quality of care we are providing, and reducing preventable deaths among our children as well as adolescents. I know that all the people in this room have a strong vested interest in children, and my prayer is that you will engage, discuss, and have a meaningful discourse with a view of ensuring that we achieve all this. I therefore urge you pediatricians, medical officers, nurses, clinical officers, and all other healthcare workers here to be advocates for maternal, newborn, child, and adolescent health investments, including procurement of essential drugs and equipment. I also urge the administrators to interact with the healthcare workers to understand the needs of these children so as to make the best choices in equipping newborn and child health units. I urge all leaders to always prioritize maternal, newborn, and child health, because in doing this, we are safeguarding and building our communities and our country. We bear a profound responsibility to champion the rights of voiceless children we serve. Let this conference reignite our commitment to ensuring they survive, thrive, and prosper through their life course. With those few remarks, therefore, before I welcome the Prime Cabinet Secretary, allow me to mention a few things about his career progression and about himself as a way of introducing him before I welcome him around. The Cabinet, the Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary to Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Honorable Dr. Musalia Mudavadi, is a decorated leader and policymaker with extensive experience at the helm of various cabinet ministerial dockets. Dr. Mudavadi Musalia was the 7th Vice President of the Republic of Kenya in 2002 and the Deputy Prime Minister from 2008 to 2013. Dr. Musalia entered politics at the age of 28 and served as a member of Parliament for Sabatia constituency from 1989 to 2002 and again from 2007 to 2013. Dr. Musalia's other political credentials include running for president in 2013 and holding several leadership positions in political parties in the country. He is currently one of the principals in the governing Kenya Kwanza Alliance coalition. He is a consummate public servant who has held cabinet ministerial positions for most of his political life in supply and marketing, finance, agriculture, transport, information and communication, and local government. As finance minister in early 1990s, he courageously led the extensive liberalization and deregulation of the Kenya economy. In information and communication, he is credited for liberalization of the communication sector into the current vibrant sector of free media and ICT to successes such as Safaricom. As Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Local Government, he was in charge of the implementation of devolution under the Constitution promulgated in 2010. He is hailed for pushing for acts of parliament that entrench the current devolution system of government. Dr. Musalia received a Bachelor of Arts degree in Land Economics Honors in 1984 from the University of Nairobi, is a member of the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya and a registered valuer, and was awarded an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters in Peace and Sustainable Development by Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology in 2022. Dr. Musalia is married to Ms. Tessie Musalia, and they are blessed with three children. Your Excellency, it's now my honor to welcome you to give your opening remarks to this conference. Please be upstanding and welcome him.
Please be seated. Asante sana daktari. The chair and board members of the Kenya Paediatric Association, members of KPA, senior government officials present, representatives of partners and visiting professionals, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon to you all. I am delighted to join you here today for this auspicious 23rd Annual Scientific Conference of the Kenya Paediatric Association, KPA. And I'm not hallucinating. Take it from me, I listened very carefully, so I'm really delighted to be here. This event brings together a rich diversity of pediatricians, other medical professionals, government officials, and partners from Kenya and our neighboring countries. It provides an interactive platform for key stakeholders in the health care sector to share the latest knowledge and reflect on how data is shaping the delivery of health services, particularly to children. My gratitude to the organizers for creating a platform for all of us to participate in charting pathways for a healthier future for our children. It also demonstrates KPA's long-standing commitments since its inception in 1968 to advance pediatric healthcare in our country and our region. This conference comes at a momentous and challenging time in the history of our country, the Eastern Africa region, and the world at large. While the world has made considerable recovery from the impact of the COVID-19, emerging regional and global conflicts pose an existential threat to the delivery of quality healthcare services. Conflict in our neighboring countries, such as the DRC, South Sudan, parts of Somalia, and Sudan, have disrupted the livelihoods of millions of people. The civil war in Sudan, for instance, has displaced over 8 million people and left 11 million Sudanese in critical need of medical care. Further, 18 million Sudanese are struggling with acute food insecurity. Women and children bear the brunt of these conflicts. In Sudan, 19 million children are out of school. Majority of them have lost access to school due to violence and conflict in their local areas. Others have lost educational opportunities due to complications arising from the war, including destruction of schools and equipment, military occupation of learning facilities, and lack of resources to pay teachers. I have just returned from our humanitarian conference on Sudan, where the international community has pledged $2 billion to help avert the suffering of the Sudan people. These efforts will also stem the influx of refugees to Sudan's neighbors, including Kenya. However, scaling up humanitarian financing and mediation initiatives alone cannot bring sustainable peace and tranquility in our volatile region. The overarching lesson from the Sudan conflict is for all of us to play our role in easing internal and cross-border conflicts that can permanently destroy the lives of our children and our people. It is imperative that even as we implement healthcare programs, we exercise our responsibility to promote peace and security in the communities we serve. Here in Kenya, we have made great strides in improving the metrics for our children, particularly in health and education. But our systems are occasionally tested to the core by disruptions that compromise the access and rights of children to quality health services. Presently, we have a crisis now in its 5th week, caused by the shutdown of our entire public health system, by medical practitioners or professionals demanding better pay and employment of medical interns. And indeed, I came here also to say that as much as we may have an industrial issue, our partnership with the professionals in the health sector can never be downplayed and should never be underrated. So it is for me to show that in spite of what is going on, we shall have logical dialogue and ultimately be able to resolve the issues that we are facing. Another perennial problem we experience is displacement of our people, mainly mothers and children, in areas prone to conflict over resources, including grazing land and water, mainly in the parts of the North Rift and northeastern regions. These conflicts, though localized, have caused a serious setback to our children's access to health services. You can also imagine that children who fall sick during periods of conflicts or civil unrest are likely to miss school opportunities. My challenge to you is to use this opportunity, backed by KPA's convening power, to promote constructive and inclusive dialogue on how to resolve issues to ease the suffering of our children and our people. We in government underline our commitment to deliver on our universal health coverage, which is a pillar in the bottom-up economic transformation agenda. Focusing on the well-being of our children validates our moral obligation to provide an enabling environment for them to grow healthy and productive citizens. Children are our hope and our future. Every parent, community, and country must protect their rights, including their right to quality health care. Investing in children is the largest commitment in human capital development. Advances in healthcare, education, skills development, and nutrition for our children and our people enhances their overall well-being and productivity. It enables them to realize their fullest potential and contribute to our economic development. The data you gather through research and share through this forum, as well as through your regular interactive networks, should inform the government and healthcare sector stakeholders on the priority interventions necessary to improve the people's access to quality healthcare services. A critical statistic in this respect is our ranking on the World Bank's Human Capital Index. In the latest report published, not necessarily the latest, but more recent, published in 2022, our score is 55%, indicating that slightly over half of our children born today can expect to achieve complete education and health by their 18th birthday. The flip side is that just under half of our children will not attain this level of health and education. So we have a challenging task ahead of us. Improving on our human capital index requires investment in the first 1,000 days of life, from conception to a child's second birthday. This is the most significant period for an individual's physical and cognitive development. A child's brain develops rapidly during this period, forming the foundation for future learning, cognitive abilities, and emotional well-being. The ability to learn is greatest before 3 years, and the basic skills learned in early childhood enables a child to learn complex skills later in life. Essentially, a child who receives good health and nutrition, opportunities for early learning, safety and nurturing environment is set up for success, measured in terms of learning capacity, completion of high school, work productivity, and earning potential. The health of our children is not just a predicator of increased life expectancy, but also a predictor of its contribution to gross domestic product. Investing in our children, therefore, means shaping our future leaders and our country's workforce. Even though we have made significant strides in health, we cannot accept that our children still suffer from preventable diseases, malnutrition, and other ills, particularly in remote rural areas and urban informal settlements. Maternal and child mortality rates remain at unacceptable levels. For this reason, we as healthcare sector stakeholders should align our priorities and commitments with the government's healthcare agenda to provide affordable, accessible and quality healthcare services to all Kenyans. We have a collective responsibility to support the whole of government approach in delivering our commitment to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for health, to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all stages. Let me highlight some of the key government reforms that need your constructive input and engagement to enhance delivery of quality healthcare services. First, strengthening human resource capacity for health. The government has engaged community health workers across the country to improve healthcare services at local levels. These workers received a stipend. They help to scale up preventive and promotive health services to prevent diseases and encourage good health-seeking behavior. The Primary Healthcare Act solidifies these commitments by creating structures for oversight, management, and delivery of primary healthcare services. Secondly, improving healthcare financing through social health insurance. The Social Health Insurance Agency, established under the Social Health Insurance Act, promotes access to affordable and quality healthcare services for all Kenyans. The agency, which replaced the NHIF, enables individuals to contribute monthly for their access to essential healthcare services, thus easing the financial burden of healthcare to families. Pooling resources through the scheme will ensure no Kenyan is left behind due to economic constraints and enables the government to allocate funds strategically to priority needs. Payments through the scheme to healthcare providers encourages them to deliver high-quality services. This model is shaping our transformation to sustainable healthcare financing and service delivery. Then the third aspect is improved revenue collection and management at public health facilities. An innovative system anchored on the Facility Improvement Fund Act provides for an efficient, secure, and accountable mechanism for collection, retention, and management of revenue derived from health services rendered at public health facilities across our countries. Retention of revenue by the facilities improves availability of equipment and supplies for delivery of quality health services. There is the aspect of healthcare products and technologies. The government has moved to lower the cost of healthcare by encouraging local manufacturers and pooled procurement, leveraging on economies of scale. Partnering with the private sector will improve health service delivery to all Kenyans across the country. Then there is the digitization of the healthcare ecosystem. The government plans to improve data portability, interconnectivity of health information, and telemedicine. The theme of this conference resonates with this model of enhancing delivery of healthcare services. You have an opportunity to make a contribution to the success of this initiative. We also have to deal with multi-sectoral coordination. Beyond the health sector, coordination of public service delivery across all sectors, including health, education, labor, and social protection, agriculture, water, and sanitation, will enhance children's survival, ensuring they thrive and achieve their highest potential. The Ministry of Health supports initiatives for the 360-degree development of our children. This includes creating a nurturing framework that ensures all children receive good health and nutrition, opportunities for early learning, safety, security, and responsive caregiving. These commitments, supported by legislation and good leadership, will enable us to achieve the shared vision of a healthy, wealthy, and globally competitive nation. Your dedication and expertise in your respective fields will shape the proceedings of this conference, enabling us to develop and adopt viable options for enabling a sustainable future for our children and our people. I wish you fruitful deliberations and look forward to the recommendations that you will put forward to enhance our universal health coverage agenda. It is my hope that your evidence-based knowledge will be tabled and more actively used to achieve convergence on difficult and complex issues, such as the current debate on the national wage bill. But I don't think it's as complex as what I saw Professor Toli dealing with here. And I can tell you it was so refreshing because even for me, he has helped me understand AI a little more than I knew. I was strutting around as if I knew something about it. But I've just realized that there's more to it than you can imagine. So thanks to your conversation this afternoon, which was broadened our understanding in this space. But more important, as I declare your conference, scientific conference officially open, I just want to reiterate that you play an extremely important role. And a few days ago, we were having a conversation because even in foreign affairs, we have countries that come up and say, We have signed an MOU. We shall offer 200 scholarships from this country. We shall offer 300 from this country. But sitting here and listening, I think I need to engage you a little more, and the ones who are talking to me outside there, because we can't just be taking scholarships that are taking us nowhere. We must be very targeted on what we want to achieve and what we get out of it. And if we engage with professionals like you, you can enrich our conversation with our partners, our development partners, so that we can have proper focus and have the capacity that is required, focused and directed in the right direction. So as I close, I'm giving you an invitation on this conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and your conference is officially open. Asante sana.